Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala sayyidil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, respected audience, listeners, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower us all with His mercy and the love of Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. I am here to answer your questions, so you may ask your questions.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Is it permissible to have a mortgage on a property that will in the short term be buy to let? I may move into the property at a future date and that was a long term intention. This question is from the UK.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. This question was answered last week, I think, regarding mortgages and interest-bearing loans. And in that answer, I made it clear that one of the conditions for riba to be applicable is that the mal be ma'soom, and the mal of a non-Muslim harbi, who is neither a dhimmi or musta'min, then his mal, that non-Muslim is a harbi and his mal is not ma'soom, and therefore riba is not applicable, and therefore interest-bearing loans are permissible in dealings with them. However, the ulama of the Hanafi madhab have said that there has to be certainty of benefit for the Muslim, otherwise it is impermissible, and that's why the ulama have given fatwa in the seminar in India, Bareilly Sharif, that if there is more benefit for the believer, then such a mortgage is permissible. So if he, for example, will be able to receive more rent income than the interest he will pay on it, then that is permissible for him, if he is certain about that, overwhelming certainty, and Allah knows best.
You know, when we say non-Muslim, so if you're getting a loan from a bank and the shareholders are both Muslim and non-Muslim in the bank, how do you establish who you're getting a loan from?
If the owner is a non-Muslim or the overwhelming ownership is of a non-Muslim, لِلْأَكْثَرِ حُكْمُ الْكُلِّ, for the majority the hukum is that it is all, then there is no harm. And if the owner is a Muslim or the majority is owned by the Muslims, then the hukum is that it's not permissible.
We know that death is pre-written, but does that mean that the reasoning and place is also fixed, or is it just the time?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Everything is fixed in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the time of death has specifically been mentioned in the Quran as kitabam mu'ajjala, as an ajale musamma, yani a fixed time or a determined or named time has been prescribed for everyone's death. As for the place and the manner in which one dies, then that's not mentioned explicitly. However, we know that in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, everything is fixed, who will die where and how and at what time. All of that is fixed and determined in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's what has been written down on the Lawh Mahfuz and then sent down upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the form of the Quran. And there is a narration from Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam that he was conversing with a man, and Sayyiduna Azrail alayhi salam appeared, the Malikul Maut, and he stood afar and he looked towards Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam conversing with this individual, and then he left. So this man asked Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam that who was that was looking towards us. So Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam said that is Sayyiduna Azrail alayhi salam, Malakul Maut. So he said that Muri Rih, command the air, the wind, that it takes me to India. So Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam commanded the wind to take him to India, because he thought that Malakul Maut had come to take his soul. So then he said, let me flee to India. So then Sayyiduna Sulaiman alayhi salam met Sayyiduna Azrail alayhi salam later, yani Malakul Maut, and asked him that you came that day but you did not speak to me, you didn't mention what you came for? They said, I came because that individual who you were talking to, I was ordered to take his soul in India. So I was wondering, what is he doing here? And then when the time was fixed, he reached India and his soul was taken. From that it seems clear that the place of death and the time of death is all fixed. In the battle of Badr, before the battle of Badr, Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam with the Sahaba kiram in the battlefield said that, placed a circle with his blessed staff and said that Umayyah will die in this spot tomorrow. Abu Jahl will die in this place tomorrow. And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu ta'ala, and after the battle finished, he said, I went into the battlefield and I saw exactly where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had circled. Abu Jahl died, Umayyah died, and all the other non-believers that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam had mentioned died in them very places. And that seems clear that the place of death and the time of death is all fixed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu ta'ala alam bis-sawab.
Ala Hazrat writes in Fatawa Razviya that horse meat is makruh. What is the wisdom behind this ruling, and what is the permissibility of eating horse meat in the other mazahib?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Horse meat is makruh in the Hanafi madhab. Imam Azam Abu Hanifa radiallahu ta'ala an, his statements have been explained by the Hanafi fuqha kiram as makruh tanzihi and makruh tahrimi. Yani there is ikhtilaf amongst the Hanafi fuqha kiram. However, the fatwa is that in the Hanafi madhab, according to Imam Azam Abu Hanifa, the meat of a horse is makruh tahrimi. It is not permissible. And the reason for that is, firstly, there's a verse in the Quran which is mentioned in Surah Nahl, Al-Khayla wal-Khayla wal-Bighala wal-Hamira litarkabuha wazina. Yani the horse is to ride on and for adornment, not for eating purposes. That's one of the reasons, and the other reason mentioned by the Fuqha Kiram is that it is an instrument of jihad, war in Islam. And that's why it is for the hurma, yani the respect and honor of the horse, that its meat has been made makruh tahrimi. Just like humans, we are not impure, it's due to our hurmat, our honor, that it is haram to eat humans. So like that, for horses, it is due to their honor. The Fuqha Kiram have said that it is the reason for impermissibility or karahatul tahrim is taqlilu alatil jihad. It's because of lessening the instrument of jihad. And that's why the horse meat in the Hanafi madhab is makruh. And according to the other madhahib, they know better what their opinion is. In our books, like in Imam Ibn Abidin Shami and Imam Ibn Humam in the Sharh of Hidayah, they have mentioned that according to the Shafi'is and the Sahibain, horse meat is permissible. But as I said, we do not give fatwa in the mazhab other than the Hanafi mazhab. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
I live in a family where my immediate family's aqidah is not correct. This happened after the passing away of my father a few years ago. What are my rights towards my mother, siblings and my wife in regards to matters around Sharia and the practices of correct aqidah? For example, doing bay'at, respecting scholars, peers, murshids, holding Mawlid celebrations, doing Isal Sawab and annual bursis. Jazakallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The aqaid that have been mentioned in the question are very ambiguous for someone to place a hukum on individuals that hold beliefs regarding them, because it doesn't mention what their actual belief is in terms of respecting ulama, because ulama are the heirs of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and messengers of Allah, and any form of disrespect towards them due to their knowledge and being servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kufr. And like that, holding gatherings of the milad. If somebody doesn't hold a gathering of milad, then there's no harm. But if somebody does, then there's no harm. It's rewarding. It's rewarding. And to follow a sheikh, even that is ambiguous, because the ulama have said that he who has no sheikh, shaitan is his sheikh. And what that means is that someone who doesn't even accept the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ as his sheikh, he is the ultimate guide that has been sent down. So it's ambiguous what the questioner is asking here. But generally the points that have been mentioned there, these points are generally challenged by the Wahhabis. And therefore there is fear that these family members may be Wahhabi. Allah knows best. But those things that have been mentioned, we can't say whether they have now become misguided or their misguidance has led to kufr. So maybe speak to an alim of the deen, a local alim of the deen, and mention the detail of what the matter is, and maybe he can give a better hukum of what the matter is. As for if someone's family member has become misguided in terms of fallen out of the Ahlus Sunnah by rejecting a belief which is unanimous in the Hanafi madhab, then in that case the hukum is that the person should abstain from them, boycott them. He should steer clear from them. If it's his wife, then he should divorce and separate from her if she doesn't do tawbah, and return into the Ahlus Sunnah. And like that for the parents and the other family members as well. However, that is when someone has actually fallen out of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Can you prescribe a remedy or a solution for someone who experiences OCD?
They should learn the principles of Islam, what makes something pure, what makes something impure, how is salah valid, how is salah invalid. They should ask learned people to see how they do things, whether they are valid or not, so that they can determine in their own minds that what I'm doing is correct. I don't have to keep repeating this if they get an opinion from another individual. And like that, they should also recite Surah Falaq and Surah Nas 7 times every day in the morning and 7 times every day at night before going to sleep, that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them from the waswas of shaitan, from the wiswas of shaitan. In the verse it mentions waswas, but the noun is wiswas, so may Allah protect them from the whispers of shaitan. So they should recite Surah Falaq, Surah Nas 7 times in the morning each, 7 times at night. May Allah give them cure from this illness.
Ameen. If someone listens to music and the lyrics has words of kufr, but they do not know whether those words used in the music is kufr, then what is the hukum of Sharia on such people?
Yeah, music is generally not lyrics. Music is instruments being played, and lyrics are generally songs. So we merge them together and it becomes a song with music. So I think the person asking the question is asking about listening to songs with music. So first of all, in the Hanafi madhab, music is haram. It is not permissible. Any form of musical instruments, they are impermissible. Ala Hazrat Imam Ahmad Raza has written extensively on that. And as for singing songs, then those songs which are written by people who listen to music or non-Muslims, then they are also forbidden, because they will generally have fuhash, which is haram in it. So either they have kufriyat in there, they have shirk in there, or they have illegal or illicit wishes and dreams, or they are expressing love towards haram, etc. To sing such and to listen to such is also haram. And if there are kufriya words in there, then the person who listens to it and they understand the kufr that has been said and they remain silent upon it and they don't reject it even in their heart, then they will also become kafir, merely by listening to music, songs which have kufr in them. So if someone doesn't know what's being said and they listen to it, then they will have committed haram, but they won't become kafir. That is the hukum. If someone writes a poem themselves and they sing that poem, then there's no harm in that, as long as there's nothing haram in there. There's no musical instruments, or there's no illicit relationships being dreamt of, or there's no swearing involved, there's no kufr or shirk or anything against Islam in there. If someone, for example, writes a poem in the love of his parents, mother, father, teachers, or the awliya kiram, then there's no harm in that. In fact, there's reward in that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
If an animal is slaughtered while standing up, is the meat of the animal halal or haram?
As in the slaughterer is standing up, or the animal is standing up? If the animal has been left standing, then it's not the sunnah way of slaughtering an animal. So the animal will still be halal if the jugular veins have been slaughtered. The animal will still be halal, but it's a makruh way of slaughtering the animal. Okay? If it's a camel, so the hukum regarding a camel is that dhabah happens via a way called nahr, like is mentioned in Surah Kawthar. فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ, and it means to make sacrifice. And nahr is a specific way of sacrificing a camel, where the camel is standing and a spear is struck through the veins on the neck of the camel. That's the sunnah way of slaughtering or sacrificing a camel. There's no harm in that. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best.
Any questions from the audience? No? It's a question from Canada. It's in Urdu. کیا فرماتے ہیں علماء دین و مفتیان کرام شرامتین اس مسئلے میں کہ ہمارے یہاں ایڈمنٹن کینیڈا میں جب بھی کوئی بڑے جانور کو ذبح کیا جاتا ہے، چاہے عید الاضحیٰ کی قربانی کے وقت ہو یا کسی اور وقت ہو، سب سے پہلے اس کو گولی ماری جاتی ہے، اکثر اس کے ٹنگو لیگز پر، پھر اسے ذبح کیا جاتا ہے، تو کیا اس جانور کا ذبیحہ حلال ہوگا یا نہیں، اور کیا اس طرح سے ذبح کرنے پہ قربانی ادا ہوگی یا نہیں؟ رہنمائی فرمائے۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم۔ جانور کو گولی مارنا یہ ایذا پہنچانا ہے، لہٰذا یہ ناجائز و حرام ہے۔ رہ گیا یہ کہ جانور کو گولی ماری گئی اور جانور زندہ ہے، پھر اس کو ذبح کیا گیا، تو وہ جانور کا گوشت حلال ہوگا، اس کو کھانا جائز ہے، مگر یہ فعل گولی مارنا یہ حرام ہے۔ اسی طرح یہ بھی مسئلہ ہے کہ اگر گولی ماری اور وہ جانور مر گیا تو اب یہ مردہ کہلائے گا، اس کو کھانا ناجائز و حرام ہوگا، اس کو دفن کر دیا جائے۔ تیسرا سوال یہ ہے کہ کیا قربانی ہوگی کہ نہیں؟ تو قربانی میں ضروری یہ ہے کہ وہ جانور عیبدار نہ ہو، اور عیبدار ہونے کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ چھوٹا عیب کے علاوہ کوئی بڑا عیب ہو اس میں۔ تو ہماری کتابوں میں یہ لکھا ہے کہ اگر جانور لنگڑا ہے اتنا کہ وہ خود اپنی ذبح گاہ تک خود چل کے نہ آ سکے، تو ایسے جانور کی قربانی جائز نہیں ہوگی، صحیح نہیں ہوگی۔ تو اگر گولی ماری گئی، وہ جانور لنگڑا ہو گیا اس کے ٹانگ پر، اور وہ لنگڑا ہو گیا، پھر اس کی قربانی کی، تو وہ قربانی صحیح نہیں ہوگی، اور اللہ سبحانہ وتعالیٰ بہتر جانتا ہے۔ ٹھیک ہے۔
What is the Shari'i ruling of consuming vanilla extract?
Vanilla extract or vanilla essence, and I have been asked this question many a times before, and I have said this several times, that in the market both types of vanilla essences are sold, ones with ethanol in them and ones without. If it has ethanol in there, then it is not permissible, and if it doesn't have ethanol, then it's halal, it's pak, it's pure, it's permissible to use. Okay, I was in the marketplace once with Hafiz Shakil and I showed him that look, this is vanilla essence and it has no alcohol, no ethanol in it. Hai na, Hafiz Sam?
Yeah.
So as long as it's free from any alcohol, ethanol, then it is pak and it's permissible to use. If it has ethanol in it, then according to the Hanafi madhab, all of that liquid is impure and it's not permissible. ठीक है? Wallahu a'lam bis-sawab.
Is it permissible to eat sushi?
It depends on the contents of the sushi. So if it has rice and the seaweed leaf and fish, then it's permissible. If it has maybe a bit of alcohol in it or it has crab meat in it, then it's not permissible. So, so as long as nothing haram has been placed in the sushi, then it is halal. If something haram has been placed in the sushi, then it's haram. ٹھیک ہے.
ایک سوال ہے سر, یہ اس ملک میں کافی لوگ جو آتے ہیں وہ ڈیلیوری کی جاب کرتے ہیں حضرت, اوبر وغیرہ.
ہاں
تو حضرت اس میں ہوٹل سب حلال والی نہیں آتی, مطلب کبھی حرام جہاں ملتا ہے وہاں بھی ڈیلیوری لینے جانا پڑتا ہے. تو حضرت پھر اس کی یہ ڈیلیور کر کے پھر کسٹمر کو پہنچانا, تو حضرت یہ ہے.
ہاں, اس کا حکم یہ ہے کہ ایسی نوکری ناجائز و حرام ہے جس میں آدمی حرام چیز کو ایک جگہ سے دوسری جگہ لے جائے. دس از تعاون علی الاثم ہے, اور قرآن شریف میں منع کیا گیا کہ حرام کی یا گناہ کا تعاون کرنا حرام ہے. اور حرام کھانا لے کے جانا اور کسی کے پاس پہنچانا تاکہ وہ اس کو کھائے, تو یہ بھی ناجائز و حرام ہے.
Any other questions?
حضرت اور ایک سوال.
ہاں,
حضرت زید ایک جگہ کام کرتا ہے حضرت, وہاں اس کا کمپلسری ٹائی پہننا. اگر ٹائی نہیں پہنے گا تو مطلب شاید مسئلہ آ سکتا ہے. تو حضرت یہ ٹائی پہنے کی حضرت کوئی رخصت مل سکتی ہو سکتی ہے؟
کوئی رخصت نہیں ہے. یہ ضروری نہیں ہے کہ وہ وہی نوکری کرے, دوسری نوکری کرے. ٹائی پہننا ناجائز و حرام ہے. یہ تو ایسے سوال ہو گیا کہ فلاں شخص ایسی جگہ نوکری کر رہا ہے جہاں اس کو ننگا نوکری کرنی پڑتی ہے, ننگا ہو کر, تو کیا وہ نوکری کے لیے ننگا رہ سکتا ہے؟ تو حکم یہی ہے کہ وہ دوسری نوکری کرے, وہ نوکری چھوڑ دے. واللہ تعالی اعلم بالصواب. ہو گیا. بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. آمين بجاه النبي صلى الله تعالى عليه وسلم وبرحمتك يا رب.